Welcome to step 4, the sales process, the approach. Now you're ready to take your sales process out. You're going to take it out to the community and you're going to look for potential customers. Well, one of the first things you have to decide is, are you going to call a bunch of cold people you don't know, or are you going to call people that you've been referred to? The choice is yours. It's a choice I made early on in my career. I don't want to call people I don't want to know. So I had to learn how to get referrals. And it's a skill I developed, and a skill that worked very well for me. And my conversion rate from potential customer to a customer was much better. Okay? So that's the first thing, is if you're going to make cold phone calls, your job's going to be much harder. You're going to face a lot more rejection. If you can master how to get referrals, then it's much easier. Next is, when you're about to make the call, what do you know about that person and what don't you know about that person? Okay? So today, with media being what it is, you can find out a lot of information about people. Like if you check me, James Heidema, you're going to find a lot of information about my family situation, about where I've worked, what I've done, the author, the presentations, all sorts of stuff, which if you were to call me, you'd have a lot to talk about in that phone call. So let's talk about the phone call for a minute. Remember this. The phone call is not a point where you have a lengthy discussion. What it's really for is to get an appointment. So you want to make it as brief as possible. I've found the more I talked, the less I got. So in this case, less is more. So again, remind yourself, my approach is to get an appointment as quickly as possible and then end the conversation. And if they ask you questions that require a deeper conversation, you can say to them, well, that's a really interesting question. That's something we can discuss about, and I'll make sure it's one of the first things we address when we get together. Right, okay? So now let's talk about the logistics of the phone call. I encourage you to do a number of things. One, don't sit down when you make your phone calls. Your energy is down. Your voice actually takes on a different timbre. I want you to stand up, okay? I'm standing up right now, and my voice is much richer than if I was sitting down. You've probably seen some of my other videos where I'm seated, and I have to work that much harder to bring energy to the conversation. But here I'm standing up. I can move around, and I really encourage you to move around with cell phones. You can walk. You can do all sorts of things while you're doing that. Okay? Next is, have a mirror someplace on the wall. And look at the mirror and smile, because when you smile, your voice is that much richer. It really does. It brings energy to what you're doing. Okay? So stand up, move around, smile. Next is, do a bunch of calls at the same time. Rather than have a phone call, have an appointment, have a phone call, do paperwork, have a phone call, go have a coffee, whatever. Sit down, have a concentrated time that you're going to make phone calls, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and that's where majority of your calls happen. And because what I found from my experience, if I sat down and did 10 or 20 calls, I'm always adjusting in those phone calls and getting better and better, because I'm just sort of getting into a rhythm, into a pace of making those calls. And so I encourage you to make your calls together, okay? So what are you going to take away from this? 1 is cold or warm calls. 2, do some research. 3, stand up, move around, smile. 4, make your calls together in a group so many times a week. I hope this is helpful. By the way, again, a little plug for one of my books, The Passionate Salesperson. There's lots of scripts in there of what to actually say. I'm not going to address the scripts here. You can pick up the book. It's in e-version and paperback, and available on Amazon. And it's got lots of detail in there to help you with this. I wish you great success. And tomorrow we'll talk about step 5.